Oh yeah, we in here. Here comes the juke. Here comes the juke. Here comes the juke. Take a swig of water. What's happening, y'all? You are now watching Juke Boy Sports Show. I am your host, Kyng Ralph, doing solo dolo. I wanted to get Tar in here, but he couldn't make it today, so it's just me for tonight. Got to take a swig of your water. Hope everybody's doing good out there in TV land. But like I said, you are now watching Juke Boy Sports Show. Let's send a little shout out to the sponsors before we get this thing running and jumping. So if you want to do a podcast like what you're watching right now, music video, photo shoot, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. And if you're looking for a clean, genderless, no crash energy drink, go on dubby.com, w.com. Use promo code JUKE, J-U-K, for 20% off. And then make sure, if you haven't already, however you're here, like the He Say, She Say channel on Facebook, subscribe at Juke Network on YouTube. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Make sure you go follow me at KYNGRALPH on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, @ an underscore for X or Twitter. And then make sure you go follow the sports page altogether at Juke Sports Show. And let's get it jumping, man. Robert Saleh sucks to suck, my boy. But yeah, he was fired this morning by the New York Jets. Leads to the question, everything that's happened over the couple of years, like the dysfunction that we have with the New York Jets, leads you to the question, was he scapegoated? And he takes over a team that wasn't good. Now his record while he was there is 20-36. So we do have to at least acknowledge he did play a part in the dysfunction, but the things that he was brought there to fix, I feel like he did his job. He just needed a little bit of help along the way. And so 20, like I mentioned, 20-36, they finally get it. They get a plan. They're like, you know what? We're going to go after Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to bring us home. And they bring in Aaron Rodgers. Now, he's a little older, but he is coming off of, he has 4 MVPs in his career, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So now we go and we just say, you know what? Let's bring him in and see what he needs, what we need to get him, and what he would need to be able to be successful. So we give him his wish list. He does his thing, and Aaron Rodgers gets here. He comes with Alan Lazard. He gets Nathaniel Hackett as an offensive coordinator, and he tears his Achilles 5 plays into the season. So I get it where there's certain things where in that moment, Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old. You should at least have a capable backup that if all else fails, at least you got a Joe Flacco that can get us to the playoffs or is capable and play complementary football to what the defense is. Because another thing about him was this year, 7th ranked defense. And he was a defensive guy, was a former linebacker coach, defensive coordinator for the 49ers when they made it to the first Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan, and then he gets the job after the fact. And so I feel like what he was brought in to do, he does a good job. He's a great defensive coach. The defense and the players love him. I just feel like this situation with Aaron Rodgers kind of brings me a little, you got to question some things. Eyes get kind of tight. Because, like, you're supposed to be this dude. We gave you a pass last year, but then this year, he's played terrible. Like, he's not nowhere near, like, at this point, you would almost, at least I can take, Zach Wilson. Like, at least I kind of expected this with Zach Wilson. So it's like I need to be able to tailor my team around that. But now Aaron Rodgers is playing no better than Zach Wilson was last year. So, and he's supposed to be one of the GOATs. And so I feel like this conversation is like, yo, Aaron, you got to play better, bro. Like, I know you've mentioned it. I know it's like, oh, yeah, this is just part of getting better because he didn't go to OTAs. He didn't play in the preseason. And you have certain teams that, like the Chiefs, played in the preseason and had OTAs. Some of the better teams that are 5-0 that hit the ground running, Minnesota Vikings went to OTAs. Like, yeah, you can't use the season and the beginning part of the season now that the season is a little bit longer. You can't use that as preseason and training when it's like once you get older, bro, you're not that 35-year-old Aaron Rodgers that could just show up and go hoop. And now it's like, bro, you need a little bit of that stretch before you get in the game. And I feel like I believe he was scapegoated, bro. I feel like what Robert Saleh was brought there to do, I feel like he's doing everything that he can. But the offensive side of the ball is where this is a situation where, like, the opposite of what I'm going to end up talking about the Raiders in a little bit is I feel like the coach is doing what the coach is supposed to be doing. The offensive coordinator is not. So you got to get rid of him, bring in another idea or some fresh eyes or something like that, because the defense is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So why would I get rid of the guy that's in control of the defense, but not the guy that's in control of the offense, and the offense is the one that's struggling? And that's the part for me where I feel like he was scapegoated, bro. And we got to get ready to at least acknowledge the conversation that Aaron Rodgers might be a coach killer, bro. Like, what was my man Mike McCarthy, that's for the Dallas Cowboys right now. He was the Green Bay Packers coach, had won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, was a good offensive mind. Aaron Rodgers starts to criticize him, they get rid of him. They bring in Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is like, oh, he's struggling, doesn't look like he's the guy. Aaron Rodgers leaves. Now look at Matt LaFleur, and I just got done talking about him a week or two ago about how he's one of the best coaches in football. And so now he comes here. Person was already struggling, so I'm not going to say he at least he didn't pull the trigger, but he definitely was the one leading the path, setting him up for a trap, bro. Because Aaron Rodgers has been awful this year, and I felt like this was supposed to be Robert Saleh's saving grace, was that at least once Aaron Rodgers gets back, we're going to be straight. And although they're not that far off, because next week they play the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. They win that game, they're first in their division. And they're back in the conversation and in the hunt and can get things going in the right direction. But I just personally feel like the offensive coordinator should have been the one to go and not the coach. So moving along, we got who you got. I moved it up a little bit because it's just one team left. I'm talking about the Minnesota Lynx outlast the Connecticut Sun. Now they're going to play the New York Liberty in the finals. Who you got? Boy, this is one for me where I feel like it could go either way. I feel like with the New York Liberty, you have where I feel like there's a certain amount of like veteran, been there, done that, while also playing at a high level, where the Minnesota Lynx have a lot of young talent that are realizing themselves and having their breakout years and hitting and reaching their potential. So I'm a big fan of Stewie and Sabrina, so I'm going to rock with my bias. It's probably going to take over a little bit. At least I can argue my bias, though, because I just feel like Stewie and what she's able to do offensively, being versatile. And then you have Stewie and Jones, who both won MVPs. Sabrina has all the talent in the world. She was Miss Triple-Double before Caitlin Clark came along. And so I feel like I'm willing to take their big three in the way that they're playing right now over anybody's big three. And I know Nafisa Collier has been balling out. I think she had like 4 or 5 blocks today with a double-double. Like, she's on a mission. But I just feel like right now the New York Liberty's team is just a little better. They have 2 former MVPs, a player who's more than capable. If Sabrina was put in a position of where she would have to carry a lot of the offensive workload, I feel like we could see her put up numbers that will have her in an MVP conversation. But unfortunately, she plays in a system and where she has to just complement the other 2 big of the big 2 or the big 3. And so I feel like New York Liberty, I'm going to take them. I ain't going to say nothing disrespectful, but I'm just, in the end, I'm going to say New York Liberty are going to win this series. And so I mentioned it earlier, a little bit of foreshadowing, but should the Raiders tank? And I know as a Raider fan, I don't want to say this, but at the same time, Christian Wilkins, who was a big acquisition over the offseason, hurt out indefinitely, so you never know what happens with that. He can come back in 2 weeks. He can be gone for the season. Devontae Adams asked for a trade. And then watching our quarterback situation, if we're able to at least keep the defense where it's at, and maybe just improve on little small minor things, and then offensively get new pieces, maybe a new offensive coordinator. I'm in favor of us tanking, yo. We got to get rid of Lugetti. I think tanking to the point where you can get a top 5, top 10 pick and getting your quarterback of the future. You get an offensive coordinator that can work well with that talent. With the defensive talent that we currently have, it just depends on, can Antonio Pierce not lose the locker room. I know if the rumors are true, Devontae Adams was one of the main people that wanted him to be brought back as the coach. But also now this year, for some reason, they're just not getting along. And so if he loses Devontae, does he lose the locker room? And that's the one thing that in this situation, the perfect situation, trade Devontae, get a first or second round, tank a little bit, not too much, because it's like we're not that good right now, but at least get a top 10 pick out of your draft pick, get a first or second or high second round, and then retool certain things, get rid of Lugetti and get a new offensive coordinator. Like before the last couple of weeks, man, if you would just think about like a Brian Daboll and what he would be able to do having that defense on the other side, but that offensive mind and his tutelage with quarterbacks is one of those things where I would love to see that. That's a perfect situation, but we'll see what happens. But I am in favor of us tanking, but there's just certain things that got to go our way. Keep the coach only if he still has the locker room. Retool some pieces on defense. Get you a new quarterback of the future and a new offensive coordinator. I can see the Raiders being good for the future. And so Lamar Jackson went crazy over the weekend. And over the last couple of weeks, we've seen some things, and the Ravens tweaked their offense. And we talked about it going into the offseason. As soon as they signed, it was like, oh, a lot of people were like, oh, look at this, look at this. Derrick Henry is going to means the Ravens are going to get to the Super Bowl. But when you start to really think about it and the way that they ran that offense, it wasn't so much where it was a perfect marriage. Like, it needed some work. And so I think that over the last 2-3 weeks, they put him in some more I formation situations where they got a fullback out in front. You got Ricard, who's a big body bruiser. Lead the way, let Derrick Henry get a couple more steps. Once he gets to stride, it's a wrap. And so I think being able for Lamar to be able to play off of that, and this game over the weekend was a perfect example of what the ceiling looks like. You can get more games like that where now you would have liked Derrick Henry to get a little bit. Essentially, if you look at the end, 15 carries, 92 yards, and the tub is not like nothing bad, but 14 carries and 42 of them yards was what it was. And then he got one big chunk play for 50 yards. Now it makes the day look good. So you would have liked him to have that type of output from a yards perspective and being able to move the ball, move the chains, rather than just doing like block by block, block by block. Like, I would have preferred that 3-4 yards on every carry. Where it was a lot of times he was losing yards until he had that big one at the end, pause if needed. And so I just feel like they're hitting their stride, and this duo is low-key cheating. And when they had the type of game that they just had, Lamar could be a little bit more accurate in the football, but if you notice and you watch the game and go back, look at the tape, he was pushing the ball down the field where it wasn't a lot of dinking and dunking, where normally that's where his strengths and his a lot of what the game plan is for him to dink and dunk. But I think with Derrick Henry not necessarily being effective in the game, they got down by like 10 points, maybe 14 points, to the point where now you have no choice but for Lamar to throw the ball. But he still was able to get them, move the chains, keep up with Joe Burrow. I don't know why I just went blank. Mine went blank. But being able to keep up with Joe Burrow, and I'm going to talk about him a little bit later too, because I feel like some of that, he's doing everything he can. That defense is awful. But Lamar still got to go out there. He still got to perform because the defense is still out there playing. And then he has a crazy play, fumbles the snap, picks it up, stiff arm Sam Hubbard twice, does like a jump, hop, skip, like Derek Jeter going out of bounds. Pruitt pushes him out of bounds to a touchdown for Isaiah Likely with his outstretched hands. I was just like, yo, the play is crazy. If you haven't seen it, just shit sounds wild. But it's one of the craziest plays you've seen over the last couple of years, if not just this year alone. And so, where am I at? In the end, I do feel like this duo is crazy, though. Like, Lamar Jackson and Kyng Henry, I feel like they're hitting their stride, like I mentioned, and the way we thought about them going into it, they're definitely matching and reaching that potential right now. I do feel like one thing I do want to see, though, is when it gets to, all right, this is the Bengals. The Bengals aren't that good right now. All right, so if they play like a Chiefs or they play like I'm trying to think of somebody else, like a San Francisco in a meaningful football game, can they stick to what it is that makes them the Baltimore Ravens? Because that was the one thing last year. They ran the ball, but for some reason they played the Chiefs and was like, you know what? We don't throw it today. And it's just like, nah, bro, that's just not what you're supposed to be doing. Know your strengths and your weaknesses, know your personnel and what works and what doesn't work. And so that's the thing I do want to see them go and get going forward. And so the rookie's been balling out, man. This class has been going crazy. Jaden Daniels is the talk of the town right now. Caleb Williams had a very impressive game. Last two games going 2-0 in the last 2 weeks. But then Bo Nix is 3-0 in the last 3 weeks on a 3-game winning streak. And Bo Nix is one of them people that's like, for me, I'm like, I can see it, but then he has those moments where it's not working out. And then he struggles sometimes. Like, there's some throws that, bro, you got to make that throw. And then there's some plays where he makes the hell of a throw and the dude don't catch it. So I think with Bo Nix is playing really good complementary football. The defense is really good. Just move the chains, matriculate the ball down the field, and like they say, don't have any turnovers, and you're going to keep us in a lot of games where I feel like the same game plan with Caleb Williams, where you even more so you got to dial it back, because at least all he has to do is he got 3 playmakers out at wide receiver. You got a very good tight end. You got DeAndre Swift, who is a poor man's Christian McCaffrey, but also then you got Roshan Johnson, who is a big body chain mover when it comes to short yardage situations. And so I feel like Caleb Williams has everything that you would look for and need from an offensive standpoint to be able to step in and try to succeed. Where I feel like over the first couple of weeks, he just was trying to do too much. It's like, hey, bro, just 1, 2, 3, get the ball out. 1, 2, 3, ball out. And I feel like he's finally hitting that stride to where he realizes he doesn't have to do what he did at USC. And I would rate this class. They're doing the damn thing. I am very impressed. There were some. Jaden Daniels was one that I know people try to say, oh, nobody saw this coming. I tried to tell y'all that Jaden Daniels was that guy. The thing that I enjoy about Jaden Daniels is 1, 2, 3, ball is out. 1, 2, 3, there comes pressure. He can get out, make a play while running the ball 30 yards down the field, or just keeping his eyes down the field to where he gets that big play. I.e., if you go look at the highlights, I think it was like 2 big plays to scare Terry McLaurin, where I feel like he gets out of the pocket, still keeps his eyes down the field, and can deliver a dot. And he's definitely the best of all of them, but at the same time, can't not give credit to Caleb Williams as well as Bo Nix and what they've been able to do. Actually, this week it was just announced Drake May is going to make his first start. So we'll see what happens with him. His situation's a little bit different because they just don't. The Patriots do not have the talent around him that some of the other teams do. So it's like for him, I feel like he's going to have to do a lot more than some of the other guys, where Bo Nix can come in and lean on the running game and the defense, where Caleb Williams has a stable of help. Jaden Daniels has some solid running backs and a really good wide receiver, where Drake May don't. I think he got Ramondre Stevenson, who can't hold on to the ball right now. and it's not a whole lot of help. So I feel like for him, he's going to have to do a lot more than some of the other guys. So I'm a little bit afraid for him, but at the same time, I feel like they did do him a good thing by sitting him for 5 games before just throwing him out there. And so I kind of talked about it earlier, and I was sitting here thinking about it because I seen someone comparing Sabrina to Caitlin Clark. And I really believe that Caitlin Clark, in no way, shape, or form am I ever going to take or discount things that she's done. But I do feel like the popularity of the sport when it pertains to the women's conversation and her skill level, it's like the perfect storm, if you will. And I feel like we've seen Caitlin Clark and Sabrina. We've seen Maya Moore. We've seen Candace Parker. Shit, Kelsey Plum coming out of college with the way she was putting up buckets. But I just feel like with the popularity the sport was getting over the last couple of years, and then the Angel Reese situation where Angel Reese gets painted like the villain, so now Caitlin Clark can be the hero in a sense. Now then she reaches and breaks Kelsey Plum's record. So then I feel like the popularity versus Caitlin Clark's story and timing of everything is the perfect storm. And for whatever reason, Caitlin Clark is getting the hate. I feel like she's doing everything that you can ask of a superstar right now. She's staying positive. Yeah, she talks her trash on the court, but off the court, she's being a model citizen. You don't really see her too much in any kind of back and forth banter unless it's just like someone asks her a wild question. She ain't got no choice but to answer it. But I just feel like she has done everything that you would want from a superstar. And I do see a lot of hate, but at the same time, I do feel like the conversation between the two, people just need to listen to what the other is saying. Because I do feel like, yes, Caitlin Clark is a hell of a basketball player, but to act as if she's the best player out right now when she has a lot of flaws in her game, is just that's the point for me that I can't get behind. Like, as much as we sit here and Asia Wilson is getting thrashed online right now, when it comes to the holes that's in Asia Wilson's game versus Caitlin Clark's game, Caitlin Clark got more holes. There's other players like Stewie, who is phenomenal at that size. Like, shit, Juju coming up the pipeline. I'm gonna talk about her in a little bit with that Nike deal that she got. But Juju being Angel Reese's size, but being able to handle the ball like that. Paige, Sabrina. I feel like Sabrina's skill set is exactly what Caitlin Clark's skill set is, but Caitlin Clark is being allowed to play with so much more openness and freedom than Sabrina gets, but also Sabrina's playing with Stewie and Jones. So I do feel like there's certain parts where I don't think that Caitlin Clark is somebody we've never seen. I just feel like she's playing at a high level, but also like it's the perfect storm because the league's been gaining and the sport has been getting so much popularity over the last couple of years that now her is the face of it. We got this person to push. This is an easy one. Let's go. And they've been going crazy and they've been putting up numbers. So I'm excited for the growth of it. I just hate how the conversation has turned negative to some degree, or a lot of degrees, honestly. And so I talked about it earlier. Joe Burrow, he was balling out, and 5 touchdowns, almost 400 yards. I think he's like top 5, or if not first, in the completion percentage. But he just all it really takes is one. The same way that Lamar fumbled, him throwing that interception puts Lamar in a position of where he's in the game. But I do personally feel like quarterbacks get too much credit or criticism when it comes to a sport that's so dependent on the team aspect of it. Like, when it comes to basketball, like, there's 5 players on the court. Y'all play both sides. So, like, one really good player, superstar, top 5 player we've never seen before can affect the game in a way that is not the same in the NFL. And yes, I do feel like the top 10 quarterbacks versus the bottom 10 quarterbacks. All right, when you look at the top teams, who got the best quarterback versus who got the worst. So I do feel like there's that. You're not winning anything without a comp or good quarterback. But I do feel like they get way too much credit because they don't play defense. Like Tom Brady, go look at Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. How many of the defenses that he had that went with him to the Super Bowl were not in the top 10? Like, even if you just looked at his career, not even the years that he went to the Super Bowl, just think about his career. How often did Tom Brady not have a top 10 defense? And if they weren't in the top 10, I bet you they weren't no lower than 15, where there's certain players that never had a good defense. And so what we're doing right now, it sucks to see because go and look at every statistical category. Joe Burrow is doing everything that he can. He's top 5 in everything. But his team is giving up 30. I scored 38 points. Y'all gave up 41. What am I supposed to do in that moment where they have a hell of a game on offense and the defense just giving up the cheeks at the end? And that's the part for me that I think sucks from the quarterback standpoint, because I just love sports, bro. I think it should be even. It should be fair. But I do feel like they give too much credit sometimes when they win, and then they get too much of the blame where Joe Burrow is doing everything that he can. It's not his fault that his team can't get after the quarterback, cause turnovers or things of that such. And while I'm on the topic, we got to get rid of this recency bias, yo. Like, all it takes is a little bit of Google. You don't even got to say it. Like, you don't even got to type it no more. You can just talk to Alexa or Siri, like, and you'll be straight. Like, just do a little bit of research. Stop reacting off of everything that we're seeing right now because it's happening right now. Because, like, I seen this conversation of Stewie is the best player or is way better than Asia. And I'm like, all right, 2 years ago, we weren't having this conversation as a whole. This statement could have been said 2 years ago or even just last year, a year ago. So I feel like when it comes to certain things, yes, it's all right to live in the moment, enjoy things for what they are right now. But also, we got to stop with the recency bias and acting like because it is right now that's not, though, that was what was happening before. Because, yes, at the beginning of their career, Stewie's a little older. So she was buzzing Asia ass. But then Asia finally got over the hump and was able to get some victories and have some really good games against her. Now she just happened to get outplayed in this series this year. And I feel like Sabrina outplayed everybody, honestly. You can either have it be her or Stewie. I feel like Stewie was a little bit more consistent where Sabrina did have that bad game 4. But their 2 best players outplayed our 2 best players, and that's just all it was. Now, does that make them better players and whatnot? It was like, we got to stop with the recency bias. And just because something is happening right now doesn't mean that that's how it's always been. And I got one more before I get up out of here because my girl Juju, I keep talking about her. She is a hooper, certified hooper, but she signs a contract extension with Nike. She signed one as a senior. Signs a new deal. Details are not out yet, but Cut Sports, which is who she's represented by, worked a new deal with Nike. And it leads you to the question, like everything I just mentioned before, the ability to put the ball in the bucket at 6'2", where Angel Reese is 6'2", Asia Wilson is 6'4". So just think about, and Kaylin Clark is about 5'11", 6 foot. Just think about how much bigger she is with the same skill set or blend between the two, to where she can take you in the post and use her body, but also she can come off that screen coming downhill and get to it. And that's the part for me that I think is scary. And this is the part where I start to think that, like, all right, to use the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson comparison, it's like, all right, so this is Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese is Magic and Larry, and I think Juju is Mike. And I think that she's going to take the game to the next level because she's the next evolution of being 6'3", 6'2", but also being able to do everything that Caitlin Clark can do from a scoring standpoint. Caitlin Clark's a way better passer. But Juju gonna get that bucket. She gonna get to it. She gonna put a cool 50 on you with that top bun. But thank you all for watching. I do got to get up out of here. Like I mentioned before, and it's been scrolling on the bottom. Make sure you go like the He Say She Say channel on Facebook. Subscribe at Juke Network on YouTube. Trying to hurry up and run the numbers up to 100 subscribers. Make sure you go follow me at KYNG on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, add an underscore for X or Twitter. Basketball is coming back, and I will be talking about that later in the week, and I'm dropping a NFL power ranking later in the week as well. But thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. Run them numbers up.